LSU has made the final two for an elite 2026 quarterback. We got the deets. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. This episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. LSU is a finalist for quarterback Bowe Bentley out of Salina, Texas. We've got plenty on that and an updated official visit schedule for Bentley. We'll get to that in a second. Tigers have added another support staff member who we'll tell you about. And we got LSU's SEC tournament path in baseball and what the Tigers may need to do to make sure they lock up a national seat. So we're going to get to all that here on today's episode. Big news is that Bowe Bentley, the quarterback out of Salina, Texas, 4-star, is down to two schools, made the announcement over the weekend. It is LSU and LSU and Oklahoma. Make sure I get that right. LSU and Oklahoma for Bowe Bentley in his final two. If you're not familiar, we've talked about Bentley a good bit here on the show, but I'll give you the bio for those that maybe aren't familiar. Bentley is 6'1". He's 200 pounds. He is rated in the On3 composite, the number 76 overall prospect in the country and the 7th best quarterback. If you look at the four major recruiting services, On3 actually rates him the number 42 overall prospect and the 5th best quarterback. 24/7 rates him 79th, Rivals 103, and ESPN has him the lowest rated at 264 overall, but still has Bentley as the 6th best quarterback in the entire country. So you're talking about a legit prospect here, a guy who last year at Salina had a bang-up year, threw for over 3,000 yards in his high school season, 3,300, as a matter of fact, 47 touchdowns. It was all as a junior, and he rushed for 933 yards and 16 scores. So you're talking about an athletic guy who can make plays with his feet as well. And you know what I often say, if you're an everydayer, and shout out to our everydayers, when it comes to recruits, I'm less interested in your star rating or ranking or any of that stuff. I'm more interested in who has offered you. Well, you look at Bowe Bentley's offer list: LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, Boston College, Wisconsin, Duke, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Kansas State. You get the point. He's got a couple of dozen offers from some of the biggest programs out there. And LSU got in the mix here late, but has made headway. Remember how this all transpired. And I'll tell you, I'll get you caught there and tell you why this is obviously significant as we look at the future of the quarterback position at LSU. Well, LSU had Bryce Underwood, as we know, committed for nearly a year, from January a year ago in 2020, January of 2024, up until November, late November of 2024, just about a week or less than a week before National Signing Day. And because LSU had Bryce Underwood committed, and he was the 5-star number 1 quarterback, 2026 quarterback prospects, they kind of shied away from LSU because they didn't want to necessarily land at LSU and be stuck behind Underwood for 2 seasons and not even having a chance to compete for the job until their junior year. So LSU wasn't really in on any 2026 prospects. Well, when Bryce Underwood flipped to Michigan, LSU had to get into a mad dash in 2026 to start vetting what prospects were there in 26 and who might be available. They put the hardcore press on Bowe Bentley. Bentley visited LSU this spring for spring football, and now it's down to LSU and OU for Bentley services. So if you look at why this is so important, the very obvious point is you're losing Garrett Nussmeier. Okay, Nussmeier in 25, it's his final season in college, so he's gone. And you already had Ricky Collins and A.J. Swan transfer out of the program. So when you look at scholarship players on scholarship quarterbacks on LSU's roster right now, after Nussmeier, it's Michael Van Buren, who you added via the transfer portal after Underwood's flip, and then Colin Hurley, who in 2025 will be a redshirt freshman. So if assuming both Van Buren and Hurley are back in 2026, that means Michael Van Buren will be in his third year, as will Colin Hurley. They will both be third-year players, but a year apart in classification because Van Buren played as a freshman, starting 9 games at Mississippi State, whereas Hurley redshirted. I think it is unlikely that both of those players are back at LSU in 2026. It's not to say they won't be. It's just to say that it's unlikely. I'm not telling you, I'm not breaking news. I don't have any information. I'm not telling you they're leaning. I'm just looking at the test case of what's transpiring around college football, and quarterbacks don't stay. We went through it before. Look at the quarterbacks that were in the college football playoff this past year. It's guys that, in large part, have been transfers. You could even look at Notre Dame in the national championship game with Riley Leonard, Ohio State with Will Howard, who transferred in from Kansas State. Both transfers. I mean, as I look through teams in the playoffs, Quinn Ewers, who started his career at Ohio State, finishes his career at Texas. Just go up and down the list. I mean, Cade Klubnik is an exception, a guy that started his career at Clemson and has stayed there. I'm talking about playoff teams from a year ago. But by and large, you're looking at programs that had transfer quarterbacks. So, LSU with Garrett Nussmeier is an outlier of the fact that it's a guy that signed with the school and is going to stay there for 5 years. So when I looked at 2026, if you're LSU, you can't operate under the assumption that you're going to have both Van Buren and Hurley. And even if you do, that's not enough because you're a turned ankle away from having a walk-on as your backup. So you have got to add a prospect for 2026, even if you have those two guys back. And if you lose one of those two guys, it is very likely that then in 2026, you're going into the portal looking for quarterback help. So let's say I'm operating under a hypothetical here, but let's say hypothetically, season ends, Nussmeier is off to the pros, and then Michael Van Buren transfers out. Hypothetical, don't know, just hypothetical. You're not going to go into 2026 with only Colin Hurley, who's never played, and then presumably, let's say they do land Bowe Bentley, a third-year player who's a redshirt sophomore who's never played, and a true freshman. Like, you're not going into the season with just that. You're going to do what you did when Brian Kelly got to LSU and went and got Jaden Daniels. What every other program has done, and going to get proven starting caliber quarterbacks, which hit the portal every single year. So it's imperative that you start to rebuild the depth of the quarterback room, because losing Swan and Collins, it decimated your numbers. And then obviously not having Underwood flip out of the class, not signing a quarterback for 25, you've got to add one for 26 and every year subsequent. So I think it's likely you take two, a high school player and a transfer, even if it's someone like you did with AJ Swan or a G5 quarterback who's got some experience, just so you have some experience depth in that room. But Bentley could be a significant one, because as you look to 26 and even 27 beyond, even if Bentley sits for 26, let's say Michael Van Buren is your quarterback in 26. He very well could leave after 26 and go pro. And maybe at that point, Colin Hurley transfers out. Well, then you need 27. Well, the 27 class in the state of Louisiana is loaded. And, Elijah Haven, the number one quarterback in the country from Dunham and Baton Rouge, could very well be the crown jewel of that class. Or maybe it's one of the other elite 2027 prospects. But you don't want to be stuck in a situation where you're starting a true freshman at quarterback. So you've got to load up that position. I understand I'm probably preaching to the choir. These are all things you probably understand, but it's why this is so important, because if you don't land Bentley here for the class of 2026, and you look at the other uncommitted quarterbacks for the class of 2026, there just aren't a lot of elite prospects right now. I mean, Bentley would be that guy, but after Bentley, Oscar Rios, who's the number 12 quarterback, he's choosing between Arizona and Utah, but he's the number 12 quarterback. After that, I mean, I'm scrolling. There's Matt Ponatoski from Cincinnati, Ohio. He's choosing between Cincinnati and Purdue. He's number 312 nationally. I think you get the point. It's just that you don't really have an elite level quarterback in the country that's uncommitted at this point. So if you don't get Bentley, you're probably looking to the portal or to try to flip someone, which is easier said than done at this stage in the game, when most of the elite prospects have already committed somewhere. But then, of course, it's worth noting that LSU did see Bryce Underwood flip out of its class very late in the process. So you go to work, but they've identified Bentley as a guy they want. He'll take official visits. By the way, that was the other thing that I was supposed to tell you, is that Bentley has announced his official visit plan for this summer. So Bowe Bentley will visit LSU the weekend of May the 30th. So here in a couple of weeks. And then he'll visit Oklahoma the week of June the 6th. So LSU and OU coming up at the end of May, for last weekend of May, beginning of June. And we should have an answer shortly thereafter with what Bowe Bentley is going to do for the class of 2026. Of course, we'll keep you posted right here on Locked on LSU. The Tigers have added another member to the support staff. We'll talk about him next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals. You can stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Tigers added a support staff member late last week as well. And it's a guy that knows the SEC very well. Jackson Lampley may not be a name that's familiar to all in our audience, but Jackson Lampley was a four-star offensive line prospect from Nashville who signed with Tennessee in the class of 2019. So for context, the same class that John Emery signed. We talked a lot about John Emery the past few off seasons. He was in the same high school class as John Emery. Okay, so goes to Tennessee, redshirts as a freshman in 2019. 2020, of course, was the COVID year, so that was a free year. And then he's played each of the last 4 years now at Tennessee. So a 6-year a 6-year college career for Jackson Lampley at Tennessee. Played in 52 games, a swing offensive lineman, started just 3 times, but played in 52 games over the last 3 years. So a guy that became a really valuable rotational offensive lineman for Tennessee, valuable in special teams, and a guy that loved the power T. His dad played at Tennessee in the 90s. Actually, I saw one report where he was Peyton Manning's roommate for a time at Tennessee, and then also was on the 1997 SEC championship team with, of course, Peyton Manning at quarterback that beat Auburn in the 1997 SEC championship game. So Jackson Lampley, though, when his career ended at Tennessee, decided he wanted to go into coaching. And so what's very common for guys is they'll go to the AFCA coaches convention, which is in Charlotte, and all the coaches from all the programs all over the country are there. And so coaches that are looking for jobs, agents, tend to go to that convention to kind of get plugged in. So according to a Football Scoop, Lampley was at that convention, talked with several different schools, both SEC, Power 5, G5, to look for opportunities, had some offers, but ultimately decided to accept an offer to work on LSU staff as an offensive intern. So as a former offensive lineman, he joins the staff. You would presume that he'll primarily focus on working with Brad David in the offensive line. But remember also that Alex Atkins is a new hire on LSU staff as the tight ends coach, who is one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. And oddly, when Ed Ogeron hired Brad Davis, one of the guys on the list that they were looking to hire was Alex Atkins, who was the offensive line coach at Florida State at the time. Well, Atkins then decided to stay at Florida State, eventually became Florida State's offensive coordinator. When they bottomed out this past season, Atkins got fired. They had to have a scapegoat. And it's LSU's gain. So now LSU is one of the best offensive line coaches in the country, one of the best recruiters in Alex Atkins, coaching their tight ends, in addition to Brad Davis coaching the offensive line. So Lampley would very seamlessly fit in there. And I think this is important because, remember, the way that the rules have been structured is that your support staff can work on the field now. It used to be that like analysts, for example, could only coach the coaches. Well, now analysts can work on the field. I mean, that's how LSU effectively hired a special teams coach this year as an analyst, but will coach on the field and primarily handle special teams. And you look at some of these other position groups that have used very successfully interns and assistant coaches. For example, Jamare Rasco, former LSU defensive lineman Jamare Rasco, has been a defensive line analyst or assistant intern for LSU. So as much turnover as they've had on the defensive line, like he was Bo Davis's defensive line intern a year ago. And there were some people around LSU who wanted Jamare Rasco to be promoted and get that full-time defensive line job. In the end, they went and hired Kyle Williams, which we've talked about, feel like it's a great hire. But even remember back when Ed Ogeron was the coach, Dennis Johnson was an analyst, he was a graduate assistant, and he went straight from a GA to being the defensive line coach under Dave Aranda. And of course, I mean, Dennis Johnson's gone on and went to coach with Aranda at Baylor. Now he's the defensive line coach for the Baltimore Ravens in the NFL. He's had a meteoric rise in the coaching ranks. So all that to say, like, these are very valuable spots in the current culture of college football where these guys can actually coach on the field. So a huge benefit to have a guy like that, another body. And what I always say about analysts or interns or GAs or any of the support staff is if you as a program can afford it and it makes you even 1% better, then there's no downside. There are just some programs that are sort of, I hate to use the phrase, but you understand what I mean. If you say like a poverty program, ones that aren't the major financial programs that can't afford support staff, then I understand why you're not going to add support staff. But if you're LSU and you can pay a bargain basement price, an entry level price for, or even have an intern that's going to work for free, and it benefits your staff, it's another eye, a set of eyes, someone who can help coach, run drills, it even makes you 1% better, you do it. So Jackson Lampley's a name to remember. He had a lot of options, could have gone anywhere. And it's interesting if you look at his Twitter profile. This is a guy, again, a Tennessee legacy. He's from Nashville. His dad played at Tennessee on the 97 SEC championship team. He's been at Tennessee, was there for 6 years, never left. And after making the announcement that he's joining LSU staff, the new header on his Twitter bio or his X account bio is Tiger Stadium with the LSU Tigers running out the tunnel. So he has already been indoctrinated in Jackson Lampley joining the LSU staff, and hopefully a great benefit for Brian Kelly and the staff as they move toward the 2025 season, one that has very grand expectations. Speaking of grand expectations, LSU baseball never shies away from grand expectations. What will it take to get through this path for LSU to make a run to Omaha here in 2025? We'll wrap up with that next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. LSU took 2 out of 3 from South Carolina over the weekend, and that should, in effect, lock up a national seed for LSU, although it does feel a wee bit tenuous. D1 Baseball, who's the most respected college baseball outlet there is, D1 Baseball has LSU projected on Monday morning as the number 7 national seed. So remember, there are 8 national seeds, and we've talked about it plenty, why this matters so much for LSU. This is an LSU team that was 500 away from Alex Box Stadium this year. So you're talking about a team that dramatically better. I'm trying to look up the record. I'm almost certain it was 30-5 at home. Let me just make sure I have it right. I want to be accurate. I think they were 30-5 at home and 8-8 on the road this year. So imperative that your path to the College World Series run through Alex Box Stadium. We've talked about it before. In the history of LSU baseball in this format, the super regional format, yes, LSU was 30-5 at home, 8-8 on the road. So in the history of this format, the super regional format, LSU has never advanced to the College World Series from a road super regional. Now, they've lost home super regionals 3 times. But every time they've advanced to the College World Series in this format, it's been from the box. And I just told you, LSU 30-5 at home this year, 8-8 on the road. So you want the path to Omaha to go through Alex Box Stadium. So when you look at LSU's resume, as of right now, they go to Hoover and they're in really good position. It would be even if LSU lost its only game in the SEC tournament, they'll play Friday. Even if they lost, you would still feel good. They won 7 of their 10 SEC series. More than half of their games won more than half of their quad one games. And only Arkansas in the SEC has won more games as of May 19th. So that could change, of course, whenever you go into the SEC tournament, see how that goes. You're talking about, though, a league that has 5 top 5 RPI teams. Auburn, Vandy, Texas, Arkansas, they all have more quad one wins than LSU. Texas and Auburn both beat LSU head-to-head. Vandy and LSU didn't play this year, but Vandy had a tougher schedule. Arkansas won 20 league games. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if the SEC gets 4, 5, or 6 national seeds. Or as you sort of like scoreboard watch around the country, Oregon State are teams you're going to have to keep an eye on. Oregon won the Big Ten. They're number 12 in the RPI. They're 9-1 against quad one. Oregon State swept 4 games and played a top 10 non-conference strength of schedule as well. Oregon has a much better case than Oregon State winning the Big Ten, but it's worth watching. And then, of course, North Carolina is going to be a top 8 after they just won a series against Florida State. So, again, LSU right now is projected as the number 7 national seed by D1 baseball. It's just a projection, and it's largely because Georgia swept Auburn, Auburn won a series or swept LSU. So you're looking at kind of how that may all play out. Keep an eye on Oregon, maybe Florida State as well as you move through conference tournament. But I think it would be, even if LSU were to lose its only game in the SEC tournament on Friday, remember, it's single elimination. So even if LSU plays Friday and loses, I think it would still take a pretty sizable shift somewhere in college baseball for LSU not to end up as a top 8 national seed. The real question is, where will they fall among the 5 or 6 SEC teams that get top 8 national seeds? You want to cheer against Oregon. You want to cheer against Oregon State. You want to cheer against Florida State. I mean, those are some of the things that you're pulling for if you're an LSU fan here this week. But all things considered, LSU's resume is strong. And if they do manage to win a game in Hoover, it's only further going to solidify their standing. Now, I don't think a lot of people have asked, what's LSU going to do on the mound in Hoover? I don't think LSU and Jay Johnson leaves anything to chance, just because that's the way we've seen it. I've given this example plenty, but if you go back to 2023 when LSU played Tulane in the regional, they threw Paul Skeens against a sub-500 Tulane team. That was one of the quite literally, you could argue, the weakest team to ever make regional play. That Tulane team was sub-500, but they won their conference tournament, so they got the auto bid. They come to the box, and LSU throws Paul Skeens, which was, in my opinion, one of the most careless decisions I've ever seen. But it worked. So all's well that ends well. But all that to say, if you're wondering, is Jay Johnson going to sit Cade Anderson, Ianson, because it's a full week, Friday to Friday, and he doesn't have to make the decision if he's going to throw Anderson or Ianson on short rest, I think he throws Cade Anderson on Friday. Now, the hope is LSU's offense explodes and you don't need Cade Anderson to go deep in the ballgame. Maybe he's on a pitch count where you let him throw 70, 80 pitches and you shut him down and get him ready for your regional opener. But I do think he'll throw Cade Anderson on Friday. And if you win, I think he'll throw Anthony Ianson on Saturday, just because that's what we've seen Jay Johnson do. I'm not telling you what I would do. I'm telling you what I think Jay Johnson is going to do based on the sample size we've seen of Jay here at LSU over his 4 years. So, I mean, the best case scenario would have been LSU sweeping South Carolina this past weekend, and you're at 20 wins and you are firmly a national seed, and there's just no question at all. And you can go treat Friday like a midweek game, throw whoever you want, bow out, come home, rest for a week, and get ready for whoever they send to Alec Box Stadium. But I don't think that's what Jay Johnson's going to do. I think they are going to throw Anderson on Friday and try to go win that baseball game and play into the weekend, because in this format, it's different, where you just need to win 3, so you could treat it just like a weekend, where you throw Anderson on Friday, Ianson on Saturday, and then you see what's left on Sunday. Is it Cason Evans? Is it Chase Shores? Is it Jaden Newt? You make that decision based on it. See if you can go win the SEC tournament and continue to increase your case and your stead. But we'll know that as we move throughout the week. LSU will leave for Hoover on Wednesday. They'll practice in Hoover on Thursday, and they'll play in Hoover in the second game on Friday. And of course, as we know, as all that transpires, we'll continue to keep you posted on all of it right now, all of it right here on Locked on LSU. By the way, if you're wondering, if you've yet to look at the path for LSU, so LSU is the 3 seed. So they win the a tiebreaker with Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt play Texas A&M. I'm sorry, forgive me. Texas A&M will play Mississippi State on Tuesday night. The winner of that game plays Auburn on Wednesday. So LSU would then play the winner of that game. So whoever wins between Texas A&M and Mississippi State advances to play Auburn. The winner of that game plays LSU on Saturday. And of course, on Friday night. Of course, LSU has series wins over A&M and Mississippi State. Of course, we're swept by Auburn. So it'll be one of those 3 teams that LSU will play on Friday evening at the Hoover Met there at the SEC tournament. As we get those answers and move closer, we'll certainly keep you posted on all of it here, and LSU, how the resume stacks up as the rest of the conference tournaments are taking place around college baseball this week and into the weekend. Of course, we got you here. College baseball postseason is upon us. We're fired up to be talking about it here every single day on Locked on LSU, so make sure you are with us. Hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen. Now for your second listen, how about you go check out the Portal Show, all the latest portal entries, signings, but the most informed fan on the rapid changes in college football's landscape. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey, if you are on podcasts, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know that they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.